Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Merchants of the Dark Road from Elf Creek Games and designed by Brian Sir. And Merchants of the Dark Road is a mid to heavy Euro game in which you're managing a bit of a rondel as you, the players, are merchants trying to get goods in a variety of different ways, pick up heroes, deliver those to various locations, and basically do what you can to get both as much points and as much prestige as possible. You see, at the end of the game, at the end of 13 turns, you're going to look at your points, you're going to look at your prestige, you're going to look at your money. The lower of those two will be your score, and then you can throw on a few extra victory points you may have earned in some rarer other ways in the game. So again, you're trying to balance your money and your prestige in the game. That's the core concept of what's going on here. Past that, the game relies heavily on a rondel mechanism. Every single turn, you're going to be visiting one of these 5 locations: the Great Bazaar, the Ringway Inn, the Queen's Commissions, Jurg's Excursions, or the Dark Market. When you go to the Dark Market, you'll be gathering goods from the Dark Market. Alternatively, you might be able to gather commissions or some of these endgame scoring cards as well. That's the Dark Market. When you go to the Great Bazaar, you'll be trying to buy various goods. You can manipulate the market a bit and then buy goods from the market, again trying to fill those into your wagon. So both the Dark Market and the Great Bazaar are effectively giving you different ways to gather goods. The Queen's Commissions is where you're going to pick up these commissions you can go on. You have to go ahead and pick up one of these commissions from one of these 6 different territories, and that will be one of these territories you'll travel to through going to Jurg's Excursions. And then when you go there, you'll be getting either 1, 3, or 6 prestige, depending on whether you delivered 1, 2, or 3 of those goods. So you're trying to get the commissions, make sure you have the goods by going to the Dark Market and the Great Bazaar, and then traveling to various locations and deliver, fulfilling those commissions and getting prestige. Then on the other hand, you can also go to the Ringway Inn to pick up heroes. You see, when you go to the Ringway Inn, you'll both pick up heroes as well as having the opportunity to sell goods to the heroes at the various market prices. And so that's where you're going to start getting your primary source of cash. Selling goods to heroes, picking those heroes up, gathering more goods, and then wandering off to a location, ideally trying to match up the heroes and the commissions because you can only travel to one location at a time. And so if you have matching commissions with matching heroes that are trying to go to those locations, then you'll be able to get the extra bonuses for delivering heroes. You see, you get heroes that will both be able to sell them, and when you drop them off, you get extra bonuses, either money, prestige, or both. Then you go to those various locations, drop things off, and that's the core concept of those 4 areas. Jurg's Excursions is a little more complex. In fact, it's the only one of these actions that I consider particularly complex. When you go to Jurg's Excursions, you will either go to the Ruins of Yin, which is an opportunity to try to dig through the ruins and find upgraded goods. You see, every single good has its regular side and its upgraded side. Upgraded goods both sell for more, as well as giving you extra rune stones, and then selling goods to the various commissions will give you extra prestige per upgraded good. So upgraded goods, as you might imagine, are, well, good. Better goods, as it were. So that's what's going to happen with the Ruins of Yin. Additionally, you could trade in lanterns to go ahead and roll this runes die and get whatever bonus is shown there. Look at that. We picked up another little hero who was lost on his last adventure wandering through the Ruins of Yin. And then lastly, the travel action. The travel action is the only action in the game that other players can join you on. When you go traveling, you tell other players, I'm going to a specific region. They can go to either of the 2 regions in that color, and they can come along for the journey. Then you'll go ahead and reveal one of these travel cards. You'll be rolling a die for every player who's with you, and then starting with, well, we'll get to in a second, you're going to go ahead and take the dice from the various dice rolled and take the benefits or downsides of those dice from the various travel location you've gone on. Then players can drop off, fulfilling commissions, dropping off heroes, doing all of that, and then the leader of the expedition will walk away with a bonus from the end of those, either a wagon upgrade, more illuminated dice, which we haven't talked about yet, or one of these cards, or perhaps money. Those are the primary 5 actions in the game. So on your turn, you're going to be going to those actions, going around the rondel, which brings us to the main travel mechanism of the game, which is a big part of the planning. You see, what you do on your turn is you're going to go ahead and push up a die. You're going to grab one of the dice from your wagon wheel, pushing it up. That will push a die up. You'll then activate the benefit of one of those 3 spots. Those benefits either give you goods, you get another form of crafting going on, or they give you a lantern, or let you use an illuminated die, which we haven't talked about, or they give you money, or let you manipulate the market good as well. And then from there, once you've gotten that bonus, you then move, this die should not be here, you then move a number of pips equal to the die you pushed up. So in this case, this player is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and take the action before or after where they landed. So there's a lot of planning in this game, a lot of pre-thought that goes into how you're pushing your dice up, which actions you want to take, which bonuses you want to take as you try to go through the Merchants of the Dark Road. I have not covered everything. I will cover some other things during the review part of this, but again, quick high notes is you're trying to get a balance of points and money in the game, prestige and money in the game. You're going to do that by picking up heroes, selling goods to heroes, selling goods to commissions to the various locations. You're going to gather goods from the Dark Market, the Great Bazaar, and the Ruins of Yin, combine that with a million other side bonuses, and that's basically the game. The last thing I do want to talk about is the idea of that double action, these illuminated dice. These illuminated dice, when you push up through the middle lane, so if I go ahead and push up through the middle lane, I can go ahead and cash in my illuminated dice, in which case I will be able to take the action from both sides instead of just one, as well as the side buildings, which are variable. There's a few different buildings you can slot into the game. They're also double-sided, so there's a 10 total buildings, of which you pick 4, and then you'll be taking the actions of that when you take an illuminated double action. That is a fairly comprehensive overview of what's going on in the Merchants of the Dark Road, although there are a lot of small other things I haven't talked about. Small other mechanisms, how the market refills, the various bonuses on heroes, lots of small stuff. Consider this an overview and not a full how to play. From there, let's move to the review, starting with game preferences and biases. And the first bias I have is particularly relevant to Elf Creek games, which is I love pretty deluxeified games. What you're seeing here is the retail version of the game. You're not even seeing the deluxe version of the game with metal coins and upgrades and dual layer wagon boards and all that stuff. And even the base version of this game, and this is true for Elf Creek games in general, the games look amazing, look deluxeified, even the base games, and the deluxe games look even better. This game makes me want to keep it. With art from Andrew Bosley, with a gorgeous looking general, everything just looks absolutely amazing, and this is a game that already has me biased towards it from that alone. Secondly is I do like Euros, although this is a pro and a con, because I like Euros, but I tend to like Euros that let me do a lot of things as opposed to Euros that make me feel a lot more limited, and we'll get to this during the review, but Merchants of the Dark Road is both letting me do a lot of things and also making me feel extremely limited. So let's go ahead from there. Let's go into starting off the review with art and components. And like I said already, art and components absolutely amazing. This is the base retail version of the game is amazing looking. These dice look amazing. The board looks amazing. The wagon, everything looks absolutely amazing. This is a game that makes you want to dive into it. And if you have the deluxe version or if you track down the deluxe version, everything I just said magnifies 10 times over, including two-toned metal coins if you paid for those. They will cost you a hefty chunk of, well, money, but you'll get very pretty looking money for the return of that. So lots of prettiness going on here. Components, art, all those things great. As far as theme and narrative, the theme works for me. It's both medieval, which I tend to like that general medieval style genre. I don't know if it's full medieval, but I mean, they got guns, they got armor, they got different things. It's some form of medieval plus age, whatever it is. But you're not actually playing as your typical adventurers or whatnot. You're playing as merchants. You're supplying goods. You're picking up heroes. It has that adjacent theme that we've seen in other games. We've seen it in games such as what's it called? Bargain Quest is a good example. Sometimes you take these kind of offshoot games of being innkeepers, being storekeepers, being some form of traveling merchants, which takes a theme that I like, but puts you into an adjacent form of it, and it leans heavily into that theme with the very similar to pick up and deliver mechanism. It doesn't feel purely like a pick up and deliver game, but it does have pick up and deliver in a weird way, but not your typical way. It feels more like a Euro. Either way, you're getting goods and then you're delivering them, and you move around the board to do so, but it's not the typical pick up and deliver with a map that you navigate around as you would in some other games, but it does maintain that theme, works well. Narrative, not much in the form of narrative. I mean, these cards, these travel cards you go on, have a little text on them as far as what's happening. I barely have ever read them. I think I've read like 1 or 2 from the, 30 cards I've seen by now. I don't read them. They're nice. It's a little story. In fact, let me go ahead and do so now. We just took a shortcut through the Haunted Inn. The inn has a tragic reputation and a large collection of goods left behind by vanished guests. There you go. That's the level of theme and narrative. That's the level of narrative being thrown on top of the general theme of the game. As far as ease of play, the rules are not long, but they feel longer than they should be. You see, I managed to cover most of the game, 95% of the game, in roughly 5 minutes, but there's a million small little edge cases to know about. And those edge cases certainly take away both from you learning the game, as well as arguably more so and worse from teaching the game. This is a game where people consistently have missed small little rules because there's so many edge cases. The basic idea of the game, very straightforward. But then there's little things like when you're done with your dice, you remove one and roll them. Oh, and then when you're done with all those, we're going to change the rule structure. Now we're just going to push dice up entirely instead of focusing on the wagon wheel. So we have this extra shift to the rules. We have the idea that you're going to be, the way you refill the market is another small little rule. The way you move things around the board, the way you gather these cards, if you take from the top of the deck, it's one thing. If you take from one of these cards, you get the bonuses. When you go to the Runes of the Inn, you can roll a lantern die if you pay for the lantern die. You also get to move 1+1 per hero. When you go to the travel location, one of the rewards you can get is 3 money, but not if you're the first person there, then you get 5 money. So again, a little shift. You can get a wagon upgrade, but only 1 wagon upgrade. When you get to the end of the game, you'll get a free travel action, extra thing to kind of keep in mind as you go. Tons of small little rules that you have to be mindful of. Nothing on its own is complicated or game breaking, but the core concept of the game takes you about 5 to 10 minutes to teach, and then covering all the edge cases and small exceptions takes another 5 to 10 minutes, and more importantly, well, more than 5 to 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, and more importantly, they're not intuitive or easy to remember all these small little edge cases, so that can take away from first plays. Not first play, I would say first plays of this game. Expect to have players getting things wrong, still picking things up, and we haven't even talked about the iconography. This over here is the iconography. This over here. All of that. And by the way, this doesn't even comprehensively take care of everything. This gets you to 97%. There are a few icons I had to intuit what they mean from a combination of these different things. There's a lot of iconography in the game, arguably too much, while a lot of it is intuitive, and I will give them that. I would say a good 70% of that is intuitive. You don't have to ever check it up. The other 30% still leaves like 15 icons that you have to check up. That's a lot of iconography in the game, a lot of small little barriers to entry as far as tackling this game. Table space, not bad. Game length is variable. As far as game length will vary depending on the player count. I would say at 4 players, this game will drag, especially if it's with new players. This is a game that likely shines at 2 or 3 players because, and I have not played it solo, I'll get to the solo in a second, but it's a game that when you play it at higher player counts or when you're playing it at new players, it will likely run longer than it feels it should. As players get more familiar with the game, or if you're playing at a smaller player counts, then it will be more accessible as far as, well, player count, as far as time. Which brings us to player count. Directly player count. This is a 1 to 4 player game. I have not played the solo mode. I know nothing about the solo mode. I haven't even read the rules for it. There are a bunch of solo components if you want to dive into those. I play this at 2, 3, and 4 players, and I wrestle which one is the best experience. Certainly not 4, or at least not for me. 4 added an unnecessary amount of downtime because of how much min-maxing is going on in this game, and it didn't add significantly to the experience. There is player interaction, both in the form of the way players will take different things away from you, forcing you to reconsider your options, the way you might be going for some of these same goals, and the way, especially the travel aspect of the game, as you're mindful of the fact that they're building up that character and they have that commission, so if I gather these things, I'll be able to join them on their journey, perhaps better for worse, because good and bad things happen on those journeys, but then you also want to be mindful of the turn order because of the order in which you grab dice when you go on those journeys. So you might be thinking, well, if they're going there, they don't have lanterns, so they're not taking a shortcut. We'll get to that in a second. So I know that I should grab a hero because I'll have the second pick of the die they roll when they go traveling, and that could be good for me because look at that, 2 5s, leaving the other person with a 3, which doesn't work for them. So there's definitely interaction, there's definitely a reason to have other players in the game, which is why I wrestle between 2 and 3 players as my preferred player count. 2 players was certainly shorter and had me doing more game during the game. But 3 players had a little bit more interaction, a little bit more planning around the other players, a little bit more planning on the fact that I can go traveling more and trying to think through the fact that what players are going to take, what they're going to do. So 3 players I prefer from the interaction stance, 2 players I prefer from the game time stance. I don't know which one is my preferred player count for Merchants of the Dark Road. Which brings us to what I like, can see others not liking, nitpicks, all of that, and the meaningful critiques I have for the game. Starting with what I like, this game, I mean, I'm going to say it again, this game is absolutely beautiful. It's covered in the art and component side of things, but it's a beautiful game. The balancing of money and prestige is a fun puzzle. I like when games tend to do that. In general, when a game says, here, you have different things you're going for, and your score is the lowest of that, I tend to like how it forces a balanced approach to some games. I don't always love it, for context, but most of the time, when done well, I find it adds a lot of strategy and nuance to the fact that I have to not just be good at this one thing, I have to be good at multiple things. So it doesn't matter if I found one game-breaking combo that's working for me, I have to find multiple game-breaking combos because I have to go down multiple trees of what I'm trying to do. The balancing of money and prestige is excellent, taking you down to the wire. You get down to those final turns and you're sitting there thinking, well, I have 37 money, but I only have 30 prestige, so I'm going to ignore the money for right now. I have to spend my last 2 or 3 turns focusing on getting that last delivery, that last commission delivered. Ideally with an upgraded good, because that will let me 7 prestige instead of 6, tying my money and prestige. Therefore, I'll have a score of 37. So it really works well as far as driving you forward early game, just tackle whatever works, and then mid to late game you start pivoting around, optimizing towards whichever score is lesser for you. And the game gives you a ton of ways to do small little things. You only have 13 turns in the game, but those 13 turns give you a lot to do, because to start with, you have your illuminated dice, so you get those double actions here and there, which get you these extra side little workshops, like the double actions. Then you're going to have the fact that as you slide dice up, you're getting an action there, a benefit. You get a lantern, you get money, you get the wagon wheel turning, you get to get a good, lots of small little ways there. You're going to be earning those rune stones, which will go on companions. When you go traveling, you're going to grab companions, and then you can trade in rune stones to activate some of these locations. Let me see if I can grab one of the more typical. Here we go. We have a companion, the Three Cat, where we can start putting rune stones on to get the extra benefits over there. When you go ahead and pick up heroes, you'll be getting extra goods from the heroes. When you go to the dark market, you're getting a whole bunch of extra goods. When you go traveling through Runes of Yin, you get to roll a die. You can, in fact, try to get the upgrade that lets you go to the Rune of Yin without even paying a lantern, forcing you, or not forcing, incentivizing you to go to the Runes of Yin again and again and again. You can go on those extra journeys with other players, getting potential benefits from their things, as well as getting, when you initiate the journey, you get these upgrades over here, those wagon upgrades, extra illuminated dice, the various endgame scoring, and money. There's a million small ways to earn points in Merchants of the Dark Road, a million small ways to optimize around it. This is a game that your first game is going to feel very different than your second and third experiences, as you learn how to make the most out of the limited resources on the table, because it does feel tight. It feels incredibly tight, and it's a game that very much rewards advanced planning. Because of the nature of sliding up your dice and taking advantage of the rondel, and yes, you do have options to trade in horseshoes for extra movement, to or either extra or reverse movement to adjust your movement speed, so to speak. But at the end of the day, without those horseshoes, if you're trying to plan around what you're trying to do in this game, it takes thought in terms of, I'm going to slide a die up, I'm going to slide it up here, that will give me a good here, that will enable me to move 3, where I can then go to the Ringway Inn and sell that good for 5 money to that hero, getting that hero. But then I want to move 2 to get the commission, so I can then drop the rest of my goods over here. So I'm going to choose between which die to slide up, and I'm going to slide up the 2, and therefore I'll take care of those actions. You have to plan not just this turn, but often 2 or 3 turns in advance in terms of trying to figure out your cycle. What are you trying to currently do? Are you trying to get a hero? Are you trying to deliver a commission? How are you getting those goods to do that? There's a lot going on in this game. Very much rewards that planning and that planning ahead, which takes me directly to what might be a problem for you, which is, if you don't like that form of planning ahead, this game is not for you. There was a lot of AP, analysis paralysis, in this game. You and other players are constantly trying to make the most of your turn, trying to take advantage of the fact that you need to, not advantage, you're trying to balance the fact that you need to have money and prestige. So you're thinking that through, then you're thinking through how you're going to get those goods. You're trying to take into account that the market may well change before it's your turn. You're trying to take into account this turn and the next turn, as well as which pathway to slide the dice up. There was a lot of planning in the now, and a lot of planning for the future, and planning around what will change before your next turn, which hero will be taken, how the market will adjust, whether someone will take a commission, whether someone's going to travel, completely changing your need or timing of the travel. There's a lot going on in this game, and that may or may not be as what you're looking for as far as this. Then we have the iconography, which I'm putting here again. Tons of iconography in this game that is absolutely a barrier, and those small rules and all that. Lots of reasons to consider how long it will take you and your group to get up to speed and get on top of this game, as opposed to constantly be checking rules or wondering what you did wrong. And then lastly, for myself, a small little nitpick of the fact that I don't love the market system. The market system is a rotating market board where every single time you adjust the market, you're going to be adjusting the full value of the goods. But the problem with that is, very often when you sell to heroes, you're selling a variety of goods to them, which means there's only so much kind of min-maxing you can do around selling to heroes. As one good goes up, another one goes down, and so unless you get that perfect combination, generally selling to a hero, selling all 3 goods to a hero, will generally net you between 8 and 10 money, depending on the various goods on the table. And so there's some degree of min-maxing, but it's mostly comes down to trying to find the right hero, as opposed to being able to get the perfect degree of, look, I just sold a 1 5 good and a 2 4 goods. There's a limit to how far you can go. The market system feels like a rotation as opposed to a true market. It works, it does the job, feels a little not thematic. As far as meaningful critiques for this game, things that took away from the experience of Merchants of the Dark Road, starting with one that could arguably be called a nitpick, but I really despise it. Like, strongly do not like the system. And that is the shortcut system of the game. You see, when you go traveling in Merchants of the Dark Road, your standard travel will involve that you go ahead, you give up a card, and you go traveling, you reveal a card, you roll dice, and then starting from the leader, you take those dice. So the person going on that leading that travel will get the first access to which die, which incentivizes you to go ahead and travel. Or you can take a shortcut. When you go on a shortcut, you pay 3 lanterns, which are not easy to get your hands on. That's expensive. You can't do that easily. But then you go ahead and you roll the dice, and the leader takes last. So the leader, the person who gave up those 3 lanterns to go on the shortcut, now has the last choice of the die, giving them the most likely to be the worst possible result as far as the dice in this game, in this shortcut, which is bothersome to me. Now, the flip side, by the way, to be very clear, is you do get 2 rewards at the end. You do get 2 rewards, which is huge. Those rewards are a big deal. But paying 3 lanterns and then having last choice, it feels so thematically wrong. And granted, you can invite people on the journey and wait to see whether they join or not. You wait to see, because people have to declare what they're doing before you announce whether you're paying for a shortcut. But I hate the feeling of paying 3 lanterns and then having someone else get all the good results and leaving me with something bad. It doesn't matter to me if it's balanced. I assume it is. It works well as far as the game system, and it's still worth it because you get these rewards which are strong. But it's not a feeling I like about that shortcut aspect. I wish that even if they made the cost more, but I don't like the fact that other players get the first pick. It just feels weird to pay extra and then have something bad happen to you for that, even if the amount of good is still better, if that makes sense. Next up, as far as meaningful critiques, things that took away from the experience, is the fact that you do not see a lot of parts of the game to game. Now, this is something that gets better with multiple plays, absolutely. Your first play might be much worse here, but even on subsequent plays, there's a lot of things you just won't get to experience or won't get to experience more than once or twice. There are games where I've gone to the market just once. There are games where I've only been able to utilize one of these 4 locations, even those 4 locations on the board. Because of the fact that those double turns are rare and those double turns are the only time you get to go there, there are games where I've gone to the Ruins of Yin not at all, and so it feels like this game gives you a lot of things to do, and then any individual aspect. The Queen's Commissions I find is a common area, as well as the Wingway Inn. I find those two, primarily because those are the primary source of money and prestige, those 2 are fairly common. Everything else you may not be able to experience a lot of what the game's offering in any individual game. That will work well for a lot of players. For myself, I like to feel like I got 70% of the game experienced. And this is one where there's so many different things going on, so many different stuff happening, and only 13 turns, and even with eking out more and more of each turn, I still feel like I don't get to see as much of any individual game as ideally I'd like. And then lastly, this game does have minimal variability. The primary variability will come from the inherent interaction between the players, as well as the fact that when you go to these locations over here, there's 10 of them, you only use 4 game to game, but past that, the game is mostly the same every single time. Sure, you might see different companions, it won't change up the experience much. You might see some different one of these, again, it won't change up the game much. This is a game that the primary game comes down to the interaction and trying to min-max and get better at the game, get better at playing it, but the actual variability, feeling different each experience, giving you a different mental puzzle to go through, that is fairly limiting. I feel like I'm playing the same game every single time I play it. It's enjoyable, don't get me wrong, but I like that variability, and Merchants of the Dark Road does not offer me that variability. Which finally brings us to final thoughts and rating for this game. Merchants of the Dark Road is a game that, my first game, I really didn't like. And that goes to my biases, the fact that I do not like games that make me feel limited in what I'm doing. And my first game of Merchants was one where I felt incredibly limited. I was like, this is a really solid game, good for a lot of people, but not a game for me. Each subsequent play of Merchants has been better for me as I got better at the systems and learned to manipulate the systems more, see the patterns, and get more done. I still don't get as much done as I'd like, and I still wrestle over that player count aspect. This is a meaty game, there's a lot happening here, and it's very rewarding. But some of the interaction you have with other players is incidental. You taking my hero when you're not even looking at what I'm doing just deprives me of my turn, and now it's my turn, and now I have to spend an extra 2 minutes, 3 minutes thinking through what I'm going to do because I just had my plans ruined. Which means the other players at the table are all sitting around waiting for that AP because I had my turn planned. I did what I needed to do. But you took my hero. You ruined that. This is a game that it gives you a lot to do, but has a lot of downtime and a lot of planning and a lot of thinkiness, and also doesn't let you do everything that I ideally want. I'm very mixed on Merchants of the Dark Road. I enjoy it a lot more than I did my first play. I enjoy it a decent amount. This is a fun experience, one that I'm happy to play again and happy to continue playing, but also one that every time I play it leaves me as tempted to dive back in as I am to just stop playing it entirely. It very much falls into the middle zone for me. Give me a lot of things I like, but also give me some things I don't like in games at the same time. For me, this one is a 3.5 out of 5. It's a really solid experience with complaints that take away from how much I'm currently enjoying it at the same time. This is Merchants of the Dark Road from Elf Creek Games. Solid game from Brian Sir and, well, Elf Creek, which I just said. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and have a good one.